So hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. On today's video we're out on the wonderful Classic 350 from Royal Enfield. Now it's not the first time I've ridden a Royal Enfield. I rode the Interceptor 650 about a year ago, and I've been wanting to get on more of these ever since, especially some of the lower cc models like the Classic 350. Very popular bikes. This bike shares the same engine as the Meteor, so if you're looking for a good value, cracking bike for the money, either a Meteor 350, or if you're into the classic look, then the Classic 350. So we're just out on a Sunday morning. We've been riding this bike now for about a week and a half, and I wanted to give you my thoughts and opinions on how it rides and what I think of this bike. What we'll also do, we'll stop at Pine Lake a little further up the road, and we'll give you a full rundown of the specs, so stay tuned for that. Now, depending on what riding you're doing, for the countryside and all these lovely little lanes, or if you're just commuting in a city or anything like that, this bike really suits that style of riding. While the engine hasn't got too much punch to it, with it being a 350 single, it's lovely and smooth. The bike has 5 gears. The instrument cluster is very simple. You've got a speedometer and then a little digital readout with your fuel and your odometer, and should have a mode button somewhere to switch through. I'll find that in a minute. But yeah, you can also get a little sat-nav turn-by-turn navigation for where this infill is just here. This bike doesn't have it, although this bike has got some accessories on, being the bar end mirrors. It's got a little backrest for a pillion, and also got the pillion seat on. I actually prefer the look of the bike without the pillion seat on, but if you're carrying a pillion, then it's pretty handy. I'll show you the footrests as well. I think these are aftermarket, or they're actually Royal Enfield accessories. They're a little bit big for my liking, but comfy all the same. Now, riding this bike, I had a comment asking my opinion between this and the Interceptor 650. And by the way, the weight of this bike is 197 kilos and the Interceptor's 205, so you've got about 7 kilos difference between the two. And he mentioned that this feels more hefty, more planted, and I've got to agree with him. Actually, I forget your name, so I do apologise, but I think, yeah, this bike definitely feels more planted on the road. Maybe the weight's more low down. Maybe it doesn't steer as quickly as the Interceptor. Maybe that's it. But either way, a lovely smooth ride. Even the suspension, obviously non-adjustable. Not sure about the rear. I'll have a look at that when we pull up and give you a run through the specs, whether there's any preload on that. Clutch is nice and light, and I did expect it to be a little bit lumpy with being a single cylinder, but it really is smooth. So well done, Royal Enfield, for making that so. Very nice. Switch gear on the bike is a little bit retro, very tactile. The throttle's really smooth. Like I say, that single cylinder, it's not lumpy at all. Really is perfect for commuting or plodding around these back lanes. The tank is nice and wide, actually. We'll go into the specs of this shortly, but it feels a little bit wider than my Bonneville tank. Single-sided brakes on the front, and the brake calipers on this, I would imagine, are Bybree, which is by Brembo. So a nice feel to them, nothing behind me. yeah, she pulls up. All you need really. Back brake. Wow, back brake's really good. Don't feel any ABS intervention on either the front or the rear. So that's all good. Now, while this version is the Stealth Black with the red pinstriping, it does look the part, but I'm not a fan of matte black bikes. So I think if it was my choice, and I think it looks 100 times better than this. We all have our different opinions, but the one I saw in the dealership yesterday, I'll pop a picture on the screen of it just now. I think it looks more classic than this. But one thing's for certain, Royal Enfield certainly going places, and they'll sell a lot of these in this country. So much so that the amount of people that have commented on this saying, oh my god, a classic, and what they actually mean is an old bike, an old classic. And yeah, I've had a conversation with a few people, and they couldn't believe it was a brand new or a newish bike. I think this one's about a year old actually, but it's current with the Classic 350. Handling's really nice, really nice. Suspension's not on the soft side, but it's not on the firm side, it's just about right. And the seat on this bike, which I'll show you shortly, is really, really comfy. Seating position for long journeys, really, really comfy. Yes, it's a naked classic bike. You've got the wind blast down here. We're doing about 55, 60. So motorways, dual carriageways, not an issue. Right, let's get her into Pine Lake and show you around the motorcycle. Absolutely beautiful morning. The only downside, it's a little bit cold. It's got a lovely sound to this bike. Really nice sound. Just throbbing away underneath you. Beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. Modern day classic bikes are really in this year, as they were last year. So, like I say, Royal Enfield really doing some good stuff at the moment. And price-wise, oh, you can't go wrong, really. Now, I did see the one I showed you a picture of just earlier that I saw in the dealership yesterday. That was $3,999. Absolutely perfect price. Okay, welcome back folks. And the Classic 350. So we're going to go through some specs on this bike, just looking at my notes. You've got 9 different colours on this motorcycle. If you go onto the Royal Enfield website, you'll see all of the colours. Mainly it's the tanks and the fenders. The seat height, if you're wondering, it's 805 millimeters. And with myself sat on the bike, I'm 6'2". I've got an inside leg of 32 inches. And that's how I look just on the bike. So not too small, and it's very comfy to ride. The weight of the bike is 195 kilograms. Single cylinder engine. You've got a 349cc air and oil cooled engine. It's 2 valves. It produces 19.94 brake horsepower at 6,100 RPM. And it produces 27 newton meters of torque at 4,000 RPM. So all the torque's pretty much low down, which is good. Maximum speed, we had it up to about 60. The maximum speed on this is about 70 miles per hour. Maybe just over, I would say. It felt like it had more to give. And also you get a 5-speed gearbox, not a 6-speed gearbox with this bike. Wheels and tyres, you've got on the back a 18-inch, and that's on a 120 tyre. And then on the front you've got a 19-inch, and that's on 100. They are tube tyres, so spoked wheels. not tubeless. A lot of people ask me on my Bonneville, do I have tubeless tyres? And no, they're spoked and tubed as well. So I might do a conversion on those to make them tubeless. I do prefer tubeless tyres, especially in, when you get in punches and things and not able to repair them. The suspension, 41mm forks on the front, and then you've got a twin shock on the rear, and it does have preload, 6-step preload. The discs on the front of the bike, you've got a single 300mm disc with a twin pot, and the caliper is made by Brembo. On the rear, you've got a 270. I'm not sure what caliper that is on the back, but it's a 270mm single pot on the rear. Fuel tank on the bike is 13 litres, and it gives 107 miles per gallon. Yep, you heard it right, 107. You can certainly go a long way on one tank of fuel on this bike, which is great, especially with today's petrol prices. Recommended retail pricing from 4,289 on the road. You're looking at around 4,459. Like I say, I did see one of these yesterday in a dealer, and that bike was 3,999. So there are some deals around there if you just shop around a little bit. Right, let me grab the camera and I'll give you a closer look on this motorcycle. Okay, so a nice close-up. That engine, 349cc, like I said, single. Air-cooled and oil-cooled. Can't see an oil cooler on this though, but it did say in the spec oil-cooled as well. As you can see, I think it's got aftermarket foot pegs on just here. Not a lover of these, I prefer smaller ones, but that's what it came with. I do like that it's got metal mudguards on this bike. Now the Interceptor 650 has plastic ones, so does my own Triumph. So I'm happy that Royal Enfield have put metal mudguards on the front and the rear of this motorcycle. It does come, this one, with a passenger seat. Not sure whether that's standard or you have to buy that as an accessory. This one's got the rear pillion little backrest in there to stop them sliding off the back. Not that they're going to with the amount of torque and power that this bike's got. Headlight, standard bulbed headlight, standard bulbed indicators. Bar and mirrors, I think they're an aftermarket accessory. Chain drive, 5-speed gearbox. Very comfortable seat. This is the touring seat, so this isn't the standard seat. Highly recommend the touring seat, it's very comfortable. The clocks on the bike, very classic. Like I said, you've got the speedometer there, and then you've got an LCD display just here. I've been trying to look for a mode button. Maybe it's that one. There we go. So you've got trip meter, time, odometer, trip 1, trip 2, and that seems to be about it. So no rev counter, but you can get a sat nav that fits in here. But yeah, that's the classic 350 from Royal Enfield. We're just down at Pine Lake. Absolutely beautiful morning. Water's flat calm. Some nice log cabins behind us. Okay, so let's get back on the bike. I'll take you for a little run on the way home and give you my final thoughts on this machine. The first thing that springs to mind when I get on this bike and take it for a ride is how smooth it is. That's a really big plus for a single. Really big. Throttle nice and smooth, no jerkiness at all. Again, another plus for a single. I think the other big plus as well is over 100 miles per gallon. In today's climate, it makes more sense really. She's definitely a good looker, and as I said, every time I get out and ride this bike, somebody comes over and goes, wow, a Royal Enfield. and they literally think it's an old Royal Enfield. You would think as well that there's not enough power, but there just is. There's plenty of torque low down. Would it make a good first bike? Absolutely yes. Would it make a great commuting bike? Absolutely yes. Even in the cities and even in the countryside like this that we've got just here. And this comfort seat is really, really comfy. Very comfy. I would imagine the passenger one is too, because that's got comfort seat written on it. Now, what type of age group would you think this bike suits? You'd think with the older generation like me, it would definitely be a second bike maybe. You know, you've got your sports bikes or your touring bikes in the garage, and you want to add another bike, but you want a different genre, then yeah, why not try Royal Enfield Classic? It's not a lot of money in real day terms these days for these bikes, and I would say the younger generation who wants to be very hip and in these days would probably pick this Classic 350 over, say, a Meteor. I certainly would anyway, but I'm no spring chicken anymore. But definitely as a second bike or a third bike, I would definitely consider putting a Royal Enfield in the garage. Now, I know a few motor vloggers and channels that have Royal Enfield 650 Interceptors, Moto Man Cave, Wheelie Good TV, Dave over in Ireland, and they love them, absolutely love them. And she really does handle. She's very flickable. I would say the steering maybe is not as quick as the Interceptor, definitely not as quick, but that actually adds to the character of this bike. Certainly does feel more planted on the road, even with these bad roads with the potholes. And the other good thing about this bike is with it not being too fast, camera there, not much chance of you being caught speeding. Don't even think that these cameras work these days. Certainly around here I've never seen one flash for a long time. The more I ride this bike, the more it makes sense to own one of these. Really does. Depends what kind of rider you are. If you're a rider that goes out and likes the thrill of the speed and the excitement of the very high cc powerful bikes, fast turning and carving up the lanes, then it's definitely not that bike. But if you're wanting to have a nice bimble out on a weekend or a commute and just take in the wonderful scenery, it's still a thrilling bike in that aspect. So I'd love to ride more Royal Enfields. Hopefully we can get some more on the channel this year, and especially the Interceptor 650. Now, I did ride one of those literally for an hour, so it wasn't long enough from a dealer down in Preston. I've not ridden the Continental GT, which shares the same components as the Interceptor, just a little bit different with the clip-ons and things. And also the new one out, which is the Super Meteor. More of a cruiser style. Get those bikes on the channel for you this year. Now, there's bound to be some questions around touring. Could you tour on this bike? Yes, you could. If you were doing serious miles or into Europe, maybe it would struggle a little bit on the motorways with it only being 5-speed and having a top speed of around 70. Probably not ideal. Although you can get some nice luggage sets for these things. It would certainly be comfy enough, but probably not the best bike. If you want something for long distance and all adventures, then maybe the Himalayan or Himalayan, which I've also not ridden, so I must get one of those on the channel. So many bikes that I want to test, but so little time, what with work commitments and things these days. But definitely this is it's been a surprise to me, actually. Although, you know, I love the looks, I really didn't know what to expect with the single-cylinder 350cc engine. Whether it was going to be lumpy. This is the first single I've ridden since a long time, actually, from when I was young, when they used to be all vibratey and thumpy and a bit rattly, but this is really smooth. And as for vibrations, even at, you know, 60, 65, coming up the dual carriageway, definitely no vibrations. Certainly through the handlebars and also through the foot pegs, although it does have these rather large aftermarket ones with the big rubber pads on. I would imagine they are Royal Enfield accessories, but maybe not something I would put on the bike. But very comfy. Now, if you have your doubts about one of these motorcycles, for me, just it parks still for the looks is one thing. I think if you test ride one of these, you'll be pleasantly surprised with how nice it is to ride. Like I said, suspension's nice, not soft, not hard, but very plush. Coupled with this comfort seat, it's a very comfy motorcycle. Clutch action, gearbox really smooth, not clunky at all, which is nice. So spring's nearly here, daffodils are out, and I'm looking forward to the clocks changing. I think it's later this month, so we can get some light nights and get out after work for some good rides, get some good bar snacks at some local pubs and things like that. So we just arrived back in town. Hope you've liked this little ride and review of the Classic 350 from Royal Enfield. And like I said, we'll get more Royal Enfields on the channel soon, so stay tuned for that, and have a great week of work, whatever you're doing. Don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe if you're not a subscriber already. We'll catch you on another one soon. Take care. Ciao for now.